All right, and we are live. Hey, everybody out there in the Twitterverse or Twitchverse. Tonight that was a solid head swaggle there, Braden.
Thank you.
We are going to be streaming tonight, doing some world building with LegendKeeper. Tonight we're hosted on High Shelf Gaming. That's my channel. I'm David, and I'll introduce the other channels, and then we'll introduce Braden, and we'll get into our world building topics for the night. Next to me is Anto from Icarus Games. Dude, awesome YouTube channel. You're Twitch streaming now too, so that's
I
awesome.
am. I'm finally doing it. Thanks in no small part to what we've been doing.
Yeah, just a little example of it. It's like, oh man, I could do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
This was fun. Yeah, how's it been going? I just want to hear like how has it been with your audience and all that kind of stuff.
It's been huge amounts of fun. All I've been doing so far is like collaborative world building with the chat.
Fun.
So load up LegendKeeper and just me and the chat will pick a spot and we'll just decide what's there and throw ideas back and forth. And it's been really useful to take my world in directions I wouldn't have come to on my own and get a little bit of that kind of chaos into the world that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Sure, yeah, like you can only develop the ideas that come to your brain, but when you like what is that, extrovert, and you like involve other brains, all of a sudden their ideas enter your world. It's like, oh
yeah,
I hadn't thought about that. That's now a thing. That's great. That's really fun. And Patrick is also a dear friend of ours. Patrick's been in the HSG community for a long time. He's now doing his own thing with Two Brothers Gaming, where you and your brother are like playing games on Twitch, and you've got like a YouTube presence and a Facebook group and all that kind of stuff. How are you guys doing? You're about to start like a Cyberpunk game tomorrow?
We kicked it off a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Started off our first in a campaign, Night City Knights, with my brother and a player from my Star Wars ongoing campaign. So, and using building the world, I'm using the information and have had a lot of fun building because I put it a little bit in the future between the game that's coming out and Cyberpunk Red in timeline. So that's been a lot of fun. And then working on some Star Trek Adventures stream eventually here, probably starting in November. And then I've been obsessed this week with an idea I've had for a long time based off a short story I originally wrote about sort of a world I want to build. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to kind of use my own kind of rule set or put it into a traveler or kind of rule set. But it's been, I've been writing about alien species and kind of popping that information in today. So I've been doing world building this week. In fact, I was typing up a little bit earlier. So it's,
is that Aeternum Bellum? I think you've added me to it. Is that what
that's my D&D campaign, the world that I built for my D&D campaign, which is kind of Roman themed.
I was gonna pull up one of your things, but like I know you've got your Florida one in Miami.
Yeah, that's my Cyberpunk.
Yep, that's fun. That's really cool. Okay, and then over to the other side of me is Braden, the guy who actually makes LegendKeeper. Braden, dude, thanks a ton for making time for this. I know that you're like coding a ton, and now you're like living and breathing LegendKeeper full time, and you're like running your company and doing all the social media and all the outreach and all the contracts and like
all the things, everything.
I imagine when you like quit your day job and like made LegendKeeper your full-time thing, you're like, I'm gonna code so much more, and it's like, oh wait, mountain of other tasks.
Yeah, pretty much.
How's it been going?
Yeah, it's been going really well. Obviously there has been a ton more coding too, which is great, but like you said, a ton more community management, outreach, marketing, legal, merchandise, still working on merchandise, all the things. So it's very satisfying, but a lot,
right?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, I imagine. Like I almost can't even comprehend like your world right now as a guy who's like always had a day job. Is like, man, that's so exciting and like awesome and maybe a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. Overall, incredibly positive.
Good. That's great.
Yeah.
So I think tonight we are going to be doing. We had kind of two things on our docket, and real quick in the chat, everybody. I would love for us to be giving away some LegendKeeper keys and that kind of thing. I have a little giveaway engine that we can fire up and do some fun stuff there. And then on top of that, let me just move this over to the other screen. We have two primary topics tonight. And to get you into it, so to get the chat into this, we want to hear questions from you all. So as you have questions, just type them into the chat and preface it with question in like all caps, and then type out the question. And we have some moderators that are watching the chat. Yep, thank you, Katrina. She's one of our moderators. They're watching the chat, and so as you ask questions, they're going to grab those questions and put them into a separate space, so that as the chat fills up, you know, Anto, Patrick, Braden, and myself, we don't get kind of lost, and we can make sure we get to all of the questions. So do that, and that'll make the Q&A so much easier for all of us, which we are, of course, thrilled to do. Our two topics tonight that I came up with, one, which I think is going to be a lot of discussion, and two, I think is more instructional on like maybe an ideal way of using the tool. The first topic I wanted to get into was doing realism-based world building, where it's like, I think we have in the past been talking about world building from a story perspective. Like a lot of times we had, you know, mentioned the idea that I have a napkin, and that's the map I've given the players, and all three items on that map are going to come up in this game, right? That is like an incredibly story-centric world-building effort. It's like, these are all the things you know, and all these things are a part of the story today. Like that is an entirely a story-driven world that you have built. And then you expand on that, right? Because once they've done the day, then there's like new stuff that gets added on, and all of a sudden you're kind of reactively building out this space. And maybe on the polar opposite of that spectrum is, you know, prescriptive world building, where you sit down and you think, all right, I have this thing that has formed into a planet, and there's like water or not, and then there's like organic life or not, you know, and you build out this thing, and then later on you find story. And so I kind of wanted to like talk about that concept of doing more realism based world building, and then discovering the story that emerges from that, as opposed to like fabricating a world that kind of fits the story as the story is going. And eventually you might start to get ahead of it a little bit, but initially it's very reactive. So I wanted us to talk a little bit about that. And then the second item is I really want us to dive into tags in LegendKeeper, because that's such a like hidden gem within the program. And I really want us to spend some time talking about tags as a concept and how to utilize them. So those are all the things that I had on the docket. And of course, chat, as you have questions, let's get into it. So just to start off, like Anto, I want to pick on you a little bit, because in your world, you had started off, let me just put yours up real quick. I think yours was
Ashk. There it is.
There it is. Boom. Yeah. So in your world, you had started off with, oops, I don't want to add pins. Yikes. I don't want to change your world.
No, do it. Go ahead.
Bam, bam, bam.
Make stuff up.
So in your world, I had seen that you had like ages ahead of time, and then we're like in the current age and that kind of thing. And that gets into that idea that you had a world concept kind of before the story was coming in, but maybe not. Maybe you already had like a story you had in mind, and then you went back and made your world.
I think when you mentioned that we were going to cover kind of story-driven world building versus more like realistic, I expected I was going to be firmly in the story side. And then the more I thought about it, and as you were just kind of delivering your explanation for it, I thought, actually, I might be kind of more towards the realism side, in that I have got a lot of those things in place ahead of time that I don't know if the players are ever even going to come into contact with, and have not put their intending them to come into contact with. I've put them there because they exist.
Right. Yeah,
like a lot of what exists in the wider world outside of this nation comes from things that happened in my last campaign, because they take place on the same planet. They're just in different regions of the world. And I think how in the world would we get there?
Yeah. So like here, I'll just kind of pick on this little area, and this is actually, so I do my research a little bit, and I was going to pick on you too, Patrick, because of the whole Miami flood zone thing. But over here, like, I noticed that you have this kingdom where the political boundary follows the mountains.
Yeah.
And that is, folks, that is straight up how political boundaries are drawn. It's like there's some geographical thing that is annoying to cross or circumnavigate. Yeah. Therefore, that is the border of this land, right? Yeah. And like inside these mountains might be like freedom fighters, but otherwise, like the main nation is all on one side of the mountain range. Yeah. And like to me, like that's one of those elements that someone who's being very realistic in their world building says, oh yeah, like geography shapes my political boundaries in a huge way.
Yeah. So when that's not even like that boundary, I put it down. It didn't even fully register to me that I was making the conscious choice to follow the geography. It was just in my mind. I was like, of course, that's where the boundary goes.
Because every map you've seen since you've been a little kid had stuff like that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and a lot of this world, if you go right down to the bottom right of the map into the ocean, you'll see a pin for the world.
Oh.
And that will take you to the even higher level that isn't super relevant to my main campaign. Whoa. But that shows me the entire planet.
Nice.
And so a lot of this kind of stuff existed before Ashk. Like Valoroth was the setting for my previous campaign, and we played in that for like 120 sessions. And the players went up to the Everglades, over to the Wilds, down to Oxdawn. They encountered people from different parts of the world. So when it came time to build Ashk, I already had a segment of world that existed, and I could draw from that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Yeah, and I think that, like, it feels like when you have this kind of stuff, Bill, where was I? I was in Ashk? Yeah.
Yes.
So if I go back to Ashk. So yeah, when you have that kind of stuff pre-built out, that gives you the chance to, like, tell stories that emerge from things like geography. Yeah. Right? And if I pick on, I'm going to go pick on yours now, Patrick. Because you did the same thing.
Go for it.
You did the same thing effectively. You grabbed, the southern tip of Florida, did a simulation of the tides rising, and here's all of this flooded out earth now. And then you're like, okay, well, Miami is jacked. What story emerges when a city mostly becomes submerged? Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, I wanted, cyberpunk. So I like the economic, the environmental destruction sort of themes that run through, particularly, the Blade Runner kind of settings and stuff. So I went and I found a map of like, hey, what happens in the worst case scenario for Miami? And, they don't build seawalls, and you get this kind of picture. And so that, enabled me to sort of think of a couple of things. One, the mass of population that moves north, that abandons the city itself, further making that area like dense and incredibly crazy dense wise. And they probably also build up gigantic seawalls. So in my story, I have a scene where the detective is driving her, flying her car because, it's cyberpunk. And she comes up to the seawall, and, it's almost, and she can kind of see over it and out into the ocean, but, it's so high that it goes down into the slums of the city itself. And then in the city, old Miami, they've got all these skyscrapers, right? So they're not going to be completely flooded out. So there are all these, like, there's like this independent sort of nomadic in sort of cyberpunk 2020 terms, groups that live there. And I sort of adopted I'm fascinated with the Kowloon walled city, the sort of that area in Hong Kong, Kowloon and stuff, where there's no one in control. It's kind of anarchy,
right?
That's control. So I imagine all these. There's this sort of like Kowloon walled city in Miami, occupying all these skyscrapers, and they've made these connections between them. And then further south, if you go south, I think even a little bit further, you'll see there's a nuclear plant down there that got flooded out, and I made that like a secret scientific lair, Turkey Point. Nuclear plant, and that's the Kowloon walled city. Kind of, so you do all those kind of. That's one of the things I like about LegendKeeper. I do toss in like those images and stuff like that, and then for Turkey Point, that's what it looks like. Obviously unflooded, so I imagine it flooded and that kind of stuff. But
Sure,
just having that map sort of helped me frame a lot of what that society looks like and some of the groups and people that occupy it.
That's neat. That's really neat. Yeah, so I think that like whenever you go to do this kind of step, there's a fair bit of prep that needs to be done before the game begins. Because like this, you had to go out and simulate what the water rise was going to be, and then you have to like you say, like imagine the diaspora, right? Imagine the fleeing of people, or like Anto, in your map, you had those mountain ranges, and it's like, okay, well, now that I know there's a mountain range there, I have to decide what's going on in there. Are there minerals, or is it like hunting land or something like that? And then that informs that emerges the lore that's in that area, and you're drawing entirely from like geographical cues at that point. Yeah. And at that, and like to your thing there, Anto, is that like the players may never see any of this stuff.
They probably won't. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I think I end up doing, the players, this group of players playing this campaign probably won't see it. But when I build this world, I view it as this is the world I plan on playing in forever, and all my campaigns will be here. So anything that this group doesn't use, a group 10 years down the line might come across, and it's already there. And every new campaign, every new session, the world is that much richer for that new game.
That's cool.
Yeah, I would say even if your players don't encounter little details that you add to your universe, right? They still kind of just through cause and effect inform everything that's built on top of it. Yeah. And what I think players can really appreciate, consciously or subconsciously, right, is the internal consistency present in everything stacked on top of it. And so, maybe they don't think about the minerals in the mountain range, but the two neighboring towns that flank either side that both rely on the copper trade. There's something there, right there. And I think as humans, growing up in the real world, right, any fantasy world is a subsidiary of the real world somehow, right? It exists in our minds or whatever. But I think we can all appreciate like that consistency.
I want to take a quick aside. So in the chat, I saw a really pointed question from Henry Armitage about just what is LegendKeeper and that kind of thing. And fair point. I kind of started this stream with the presumption that there's like back knowledge, and that's inappropriate. So LegendKeeper is the application that we're all kind of using to build our worlds that Braden makes, right? So this gentleman over here makes this application. It's a web app, and the idea is I'll go back and I'll pick on my own game real quick. The idea is you can have a project, and that project can have a world map, and within that map you could have little drill down maps, little like here in Night City, I want a map for the downtown area, and so I have a map for the downtown area. And then there may be some other pins, there may be some other points of interest within that map, and that could lead to other maps, or that could lead to little like little articles about, so and so's office or such and such character. So all of that stuff can be kind of drilled down into here, and it's an open program where you can just like have maps and articles, link to articles. You can bring your friends in, you can bring other players in and let them read what you've made or add their own content, that kind of thing. We were just talking before the stream that Patrick, you have turned on your LegendKeeper so your players can make articles, kind of like my players can.
Yeah, I'd say the gist of it is like an integrated Wikipedia plus Google Maps for your fictional setting.
Yep.
So you're, as you can see here, this wiki view, you're kind of managing the knowledge and the characters and the story and the places, and you're able to interlink those things and use rich text editing to kind of format it how you want. And then that is all linked back to in the Atlas as well, where you can relate things geographically speaking.
Yep.
And Dave, I know Henry Bob from the Safeco podcast. He's a big Traveler guy. He might like to see the Traveler wiki, the Traveler LegendKeeper site that we have for our campaign.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So you and I played a GM-less Traveler game for a handful of sessions all over chat, and it was phenomenal.
I see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, so like we started in the was it Foraven sector?
Foraven sector.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you went through and built out all this stuff. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
So Bob knows. So rolled up, and actually, I think it ties into realism a little bit. Ties into the theme a little bit. So with Traveler, you can roll up all the different worlds using some random generators, and I decided to roll up every planet in the Foraven sector except for the ones that were canonical, and built out, I can't remember how many hundreds of planets they ultimately were. I
remember you were just posting like world after world after world, and you're like, all right, subsector 1 down. I was like, God, this is gonna be a big game.
And basically we started off right there at the bottom edge of it from the Imperium, which is the science, the universe, and kind of moved our way into it. And we started building out the articles as we encountered the planet. So we used sort of the random rolls that kind of generate a planet. It's size, therefore its probable gravity, it's how much water is on the planet, population, and all of those things start to factor in, into what is that society like? What is a feudal technocracy in a population of 1,000 people versus a technical feudal technocracy in a population of 5 million. And you start to play with that and kind of imagine what those scenarios look like. But it's that setting that sort of helps drive what you encounter and how you interact with that world.
Man, that's perfect. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because when we did the Traveler game, everything was already set for us, and we had to kind of imagine a system that has this tech level in it, a system that has these properties. What story is likely already going on when we arrive? And so we had this whole like political intrigue thing for the Crenshaw system. Whereas another world that was like mostly empty, there would have been a completely different story, like lost ships and, artifact recovery and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a really good point that like you take the world built as built and then you emerge the story on top of that instead of I have a story I want to tell, and I'm going to like organically grow the world out of that story out on an as needed basis. So Traveler's really good at that. That's a really good way of doing it. I like that we went here.
That's the approach I took. There's a nation in my world that I built entirely map first. I had no real idea of what the story was there. I built the map and then went really deep in the map, kind of like full on. Where are all the resources? What resources are where? Who controls different areas? Why do they control these different areas? And the story built itself out of that without me having to really do any thinking about the story. and just thinking about the map.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm kind of showing off real quick some like hot linking that is done in LegendKeeper. This is like one of the like light bulb things. And we've talked about this on every stream, but it's so good. Whenever you have something in an article and you link to it, then you can go down and like follow the links for each of these things, you know, if there's an active link. So I picked on that one. And Anto, you had the brilliant suggestion in your YouTube channel of making a DM screen.
Yes.
Out of this approach. And
it works so well.
It is awesome. Like I run Cyberpunk, and Cyberpunk has a lot of new rules, and like I don't know all of them right now because it's a brand new edition. And so like how does full auto work, or how does, you know, using a person as a human shield work? I don't know. I gotta go like real quickly hover over the, you know, link that shows me how full auto works, and then I see a real quick chart of damage breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, perfect. So as a GM, I'm just instantly recalling rules, and then I'm not like thumbing through pages or any of that kind of stuff. It's really solid for that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been getting a lot of requests for that hover preview stuff on other types of things too, like the various like in-page indexes and that sort of thing, which I think is a great recommendation.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to address a quick question in the chat, asking about if the hex system is like in the system, and so I wanted to clarify that anything you see in the LegendKeeper Atlas in that map view, you actually upload an image, and LegendKeeper just turns that into a kind of a scalable, slippy map like Google Maps. And I do want to add some kind of overlay system for people that would like that, but it's not something that's in the system right now. You would create your hex grid or your map or, you know, whatever, and then upload it to LegendKeeper, and it supports. Someone recently crammed like a 20,000 by like 17,000 pixel map.
Anto?
And I don't know how they did that, because I don't know the exact like max limit, but I think it's around 15 or 16,000 pixels, which clearly that's wrong because someone got something bigger than that. Yeah.
I think 8,000 is about the max I've done. I could go to 6. I think 16 is my theoretical max that I could make, but I think I've only gone up to 8.
That's neat. Yeah. So and I just want to highlight real quick, like these pins. So you can just, I don't have the permission in this one, but you can click to add a new pin anywhere on a map. And then once the pins are there, you can like micro adjust them anywhere within the map. So like the square versus hex grids, that, you know, immaterial, it's you can be very specific as to exactly where a pin lives on the map, how large they are, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and so one of the things I'm really excited about here is kind of opening up the pin system a bit. Right now, it's restricted to a icon, which our icon library is pretty big. There's a few hundred, a color, and then a pin shape. But we will be adding the ability to, one, just have an icon by itself, as well as being able to upload any image and just use any image or custom SVG as a pin. Anto, I saw your face.
Yeah.
Hold the possibilities.
And so that'll really like open things up. And then on top of that, as we kind of dig into a lot of the community sharing kind of stuff, you can imagine people like, you know, sharing packs of icons for each other to use, like genre packs and things like that, which will be pretty cool.
Yeah. And I did see a quick question about the map I'm showing here of Night City. This map specifically comes from Night City.io. It's a website you can go to, just exactly what you're seeing here, nightcity.io. He's granted me permission to use his map. This guy has designs to take this map you're seeing here and turn it into the 2077 like locations map. Kind of like how there's the same thing for like old school EverQuest and Red Dead Redemption and all those other games where you can go to a site and see all the articles about stuff and like type things in. He wants this map to do kind of the same stuff. So the map I'm showing here is the cleaned up version without any labels, and he's got others that have more labels. You just go to his site and download them, and then obviously upload them directly into LegendKeeper, and then start adding your own points of interest, right? So if I wanted to follow 2077 perfectly, I could like play the game and map everything out just so, but that's not my style. I want to be, running my own cyberpunk game with my own gangs and my own points of interest and my own things that I care about. So everything that lives in 77 is like, for me, a suggestion. And I will just supplant whatever I want, wherever I want on this map. And so, I'm able to go in here and toss in some quick images of some cool looking folk and have them represent as like the style of a gang in a certain area on my city kind of thing. And I have some players watching, so y'all didn't see that. For me, all of the black pegs are hidden for my players. So my players don't get to see the black pegs, whereas like this other stuff is all open knowledge for them.
We will have a view as at some point. That's something that's desperately needed, is being able to view it like as one of your members sees it.
Neat. I like it.
Yeah.
That'll be really handy for permissions.
Yeah, right now I think a lot of people are like inviting a secondary email and then like testing with their secondary email, which is very inventive, but I feel bad that they have to do that because that's a huge hassle.
Sure.
And yeah, it's, to kind of expand on the map thing, I don't have a ton of great suggestions for like more modern or sci-fi maps, but as far as like fantasy maps, there's a lot of great tools out there for creating maps. There's Wonder Draft and Dungeon Draft. Both of those, they're made by the same person, Mega Sploot. All of his software is fantastic. Wonder Draft is for building, fantasy continents essentially, whereas Dungeon Draft is for kind of smaller scale things. But what a lot of people do is they'll build a continent in Wonder Draft, build their world map, and then build individual places, taverns and dungeons and all that stuff in Dungeon Draft, and then embed them within LegendKeeper. There's also Incarnate. Incarnate is a web-based version, also great for a web-based map maker, also great for making kind of like continent maps and such.
Yeah, and I've started using Dungeon Fog quite a bit to create some cyberpunk and sci-fi maps, because they got some great assets there. Again, those are typically, at least the ones I've seen, are more sort of like scene specific maps and stuff like that. But you can create buildings and offices like, hey, here's the office for my two detectives and Night City Knights, and here's the container that they were stuck in. That's where they started off, tied up, and not sure how they got there.
Sure,
at the beginning of the campaign. So
of course,
So
Dungeon Fog's interesting too, because one, they have kind of a community sort of aspect where I believe you can use various assets made by other people and like see other people's maps, which is very cool. But they are also working on a new product, and I don't know when it's going to launch. They're calling it Project Deus. I don't know if that's the final name. But their vision for it, I believe, is to kind of have a infinitely nestable map painter. So like you draw a continent, and instead of and let's say you want to like zoom in to paint your a city, right? Instead of like creating a separate map, the experience would involve you just zoom all the way in and get really close, and then paint your city right onto the continent. And then essentially you export, different zoom levels, if you actually want to convert your map to like a raster asset. So that's cool. That's Project Deus that's being worked on by the Dungeon Fog team. Another tool that I think will probably end up being very cool.
I want to circle to a question Eric Laz asked about a legend on the Atlas map for pin colors and that kind of thing, saying this color means X. That's not something that exists at the minute, but you can see on my map, I color code everything. So all of my colors mean different things. So I like use purple for points of interest, the orange for the cities, the golden color for the settlements. And that's a really easy visual way of seeing at a glance what is on your map.
And one thing I've seen others do, I have not taken this on yet because my maps are rather simple, but off of the map, you can have pins.
Yeah.
Right? So like just down here or over on the wherever it makes sense for you, just make a pin with that right color and label that pin, cities or army locations or what have you. And then whenever somebody hovers over it, they see, oh, well, these are points of interest or these are cities, you know, so they don't have to like zoom in or anything like that. They can just hover over on your pins that you've put off the map and very quickly understand what each of your pins do. And that's one of the things I like about this is that, like, Braden, you don't tell me that purple pins have to be places of interest. You just say,
Sure,
you can have pins of whatever color you like with whatever icon you like. And I get to decide the meaning of all of those things, right?
Yeah.
So, like, me,
I
only care about, like, is there information or not? And are my players allowed to see it or not? Those are my things. But other people, like, you need more granularity. And so, like, having that kind of stuff makes tons of sense. Just let us decide for ourselves how we want to use these tools.
Absolutely. And I think so once and I won't go too deep into the weeds on the roadmap. Maybe we can talk about it at the end if people are interested. But one of the things we really want to do is we've got all these ideas for the Atlas screen. It's actually one of the I say this about a lot of pieces, but it's one of the oldest parts of LegendKeeper, and so it's definitely like due for an update. And for Atlas V2, we've got a lot of like I believe someone referred to LegendKeeper in the chat as like, oh, it's like a RPG geo information system. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of yeah, actually. And one of the things we want to do is add stuff like that as tools for the Atlas. So maybe you could position a widget, right, and then put stuff into that widget so that it's now a legend, and you can drag it around, and like maybe they could see it live, and so you kind of retain that creative control. But add stuff like legends, which like I think that's perfectly reasonable to expect that on a map, right? And then we talked about this last stream, or the stream before that, being able to drag a distance on a map and say, hey, LegendKeeper, this distance is this many units long. Remember that. And now the map is calibrated, and now you can do all of these measurements, and that persists on the map and can be reused. And just stuff like that, stuff to make GMs and authors' lives easier. Because right now the Atlas is pretty much just pins, which obviously is very useful, but there's like so much more we could do here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just harassing my player, showing her the main bad guy in her world. This dude is like, so yeah, and
another
real quick to the chat. I've opened up a giveaway. We want to give away a couple of LegendKeeper beta key access tonight. So if you would put !LegendKeeper in the chat, I have a little bot there that kind of showed it. I'll just do it real quick so you can all see it. Toss that in the chat, and this will enter you in to win your own access to LegendKeeper while it's in beta. So toss a !LegendKeeper to gain access. A bunch of folks may already have it, which is great. If you want to give it to your friend, we won't know, so do it.
Share the love.
That's right. I'm sorry, Braden. I was like in the middle of interrupting. I interrupted you, so please continue.
Oh, no problem. I don't even remember what I was saying.
Atlas, the future of the Atlas.
Yes.
The future of everything.
One of the oldest parts of it, and yeah.
Yeah, but there's just like there's tons of cool stuff we can do here, and I'm very excited to explore that. Another thing I'm interested is more kind of object types on the map besides pins. Like for example, if you zoom in and out on this map right now, every pin stays the same size because that's kind of how map pins work. Right. But there's a situation where like, what if I like want something to be the right scale as I zoom out, like a token, right? And so maybe being able to just drop an image on this map that keeps its scale would be really useful. And I could see people doing some pretty creative things with that too.
Yeah, that'd be how I would handle like changes to the map. Like, a bomb goes off, levels a building. I'd want to put a little token of a destroyed building there. And so as people moved around, they would, remember that was there. And then I don't have to like go back and Photoshop my map and then re-upload a new map. And I'm sure there's lots of ways and reasons to use tokens, but immediately that's what I'm thinking is, back to the, what does my world look like? What story emerges from that look? Now I will begin, creating the world around that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't see LegendKeeper ever becoming like a fully fledged like map painter. Right. But I could see more tools to help you kind of treat your map as like a base layer. And like you said, kind of like add enhancements or layers, interactive enhancements on top of it.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, all of the concepts of like layers and all that kind of stuff, we've been loving every time that comes up.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I want to know in Cyberpunk, I want to know where certain corps versus gangs hold territory, where those lines cross and overlap. Because when my characters are in that area, I want to say, yeah, you see this crew and that crew fighting it out, and I want that to match what I know in the world, you know.
Like having colored region boundaries and being able to like define shapes and give that, you know, make here's the, you know, the nature biome layer, and here's the faction kingdom layer, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think will be super cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Gonna get a lot of
that's really getting into like the geoinformation sciences of a fantasy world kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick questions in here. Question: does LegendKeeper support vectors? And so Valency is a dear friend of mine. He's in the Cyberpunk scene. He makes a bunch of like really awesome like corporate logos out of Cyberpunk.
Yes.
So you should all go check out Valency's website. It's just phenomenal. So I know the vectors is coming from an artist's perspective.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no. Right now, you do have to convert to like a raster format, like a JPEG or PNG. That being said, I see no reason why like the image profiles and I mean, I think the custom icon system will definitely support vectors just because it's icons. Like it's got to look good at any scale. But there's no reason why the image system couldn't either. I've actually tried using vectors in the Atlas as well.
Oh.
If you've ever heard of Asgar's fantasy map generator, it generates a huge fantasy world with places, and one of the main exports is SVG, and so I get a lot of people saying like, I want to put my Asgar's SVG in this Atlas, and the issue is SVGs are just not performant in this rendering context. While they are generally very performant and scale really well, the way LegendKeeper works, it intends to basically what you're seeing right now. It's only rendering what we see right now, and everything else is kind of split into these squares that are hidden until you scroll over them, and it just can't do that with an SVG, and so you end up with really poor performance.
Gotcha. Well, that's all important stuff. And I do want to. I don't intend for this to be a troubleshooting stream, but there is a question here about sharing permissions with players and all of that good stuff. You know, allowing GMs to assign players certain roles and that kind of thing. I'm going to pick on my own real quick and just show you all. You can invite a bunch of users. You can invite like up to 50, I think, right now. And you can bring in lots of people to your project and make them members or admins. So I could pick on Michael here and change Michael's role to an admin. And if he's an admin, Michael has effectively the same powers I do, except he can't remove the world. But he can like add articles and make a bunch of changes and that kind of thing. So if there's somebody I trust a lot, I could make them an admin. Otherwise, everybody else is a member. And then I have a couple of global things to say members can or cannot do these things globally, right? So can they create articles? Can they upload maps? Can they add images? Can they have this kind of material impact on my world? And I turn all this stuff on because I want my players to be able to add, you know, articles and add maps and all that kind of stuff. I don't want them to be restricted because we're a relatively small game and everybody kind of benefits when the community gets together and adds information. So this is like global type stuff. Within the wiki itself, I could say, hey, under story, I'm going to edit the permissions under story. And story is a top level wiki item, and then there's lots of sub wiki articles underneath that. And I have decided that all of my members, if you're a member in my project, you can edit this article and all of the sub articles. And I went through, and I want to say I made this guy. Oh, can't edit. Everybody else is inheriting. Here we go. I made Jamoose cannot view the story, right? And so, hi, Jamoose, you're in the chat. He is one of our fans of the show, and he's come in and added some articles, made news articles, and that kind of thing. But I wanted story specifically to be out of his purview, because in the story section for my game, these are where all of my players have done their personal write-ups for their characters. And a lot of times there are big spoilers written in those write-ups. Like, somebody might be leading a double life. We don't want the audience to know that before it comes out, right? So Jamoose is actually admin of other things. Like, he has edit and modify permissions and all that kind of stuff in other areas. But in this area, I didn't want him to see it because there's some spoilers in there. I don't want him to be spoiled when he goes and looks through my LegendKeeper. So you can, by all means, change permissions on a per, level benefit, and even down into the individual article if you needed to. And hopefully that gives you a little bit more control. I also hide articles. Like, I have a whole, maybe I stopped hiding it. No, it's down here. Yeah, I have a whole GM section that is all hidden, right? So nobody else gets to see it, only I get to see it. I capitulated and made it so that the players could see the rules. That's used to be where my DM screen is down in the rules section. But, there are hidden areas that nobody else gets to see.
Yeah, I will say. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brady.
I will say, if you're having particular frustrations with the system, I will be the first to admit that it's not the smoothest permission system ever. I think what would be super helpful, if you hop on the Discord and just shoot me a message, basically like outlining exactly what you want to do. I can walk you through either how to do it, and if it's not possible, that gives me more information for actually improving the system, because there's a ton of stuff I want to change and make better, because it's possible to do a lot of things, but it's not possible to do like every particular permission arrangement, which my goal is to someday it be that powerful. So
let us give away some LegendKeeper stuff real quick. Valency, congratulations. You have won beta access, and we'll give away one more.
Ew.
Henry Armitage, awesome. Congratulations. Okay, I'm going to reach out to both of you and via Whisper and get an email address from you. I will then pass that over to Braden. and then Braden will get you into LegendKeeper. And here in a little bit, we'll kick on the giveaway engine again.
Oh, sorry. And one more addition. On YouTube, there are 2 videos. Like, LegendKeeper has a tutorial series now, which is great. I'm super glad to get those out there. It's world building with LegendKeeper, sharing your world, and world building with LegendKeeper, advanced permissions. And both of those kind of cover a lot of what Dave just covered as well.
Okay.
Just if you need to reference it at any point in the future.
Yeah, I really like your world building with LegendKeeper series. On YouTube, it's like a solid, like, here's how to do this very specific thing, right? And so it's not it's solid.
I'm a big fan of very concise videos, because like whenever I'm looking for tutorials and like you look up something and then the person's like, "What up, YouTubers? First, like, comment, and subscribe, and then here's how I started this channel." And they do that for like 10 minutes, and they're like, "Okay, and so to actually do the thing, you click here. Okay, done. See you. Like, comment, subscribe." So my original goal was for each of those videos to be 60 seconds, but I couldn't. Some of them were just too much, but I don't think any of them go over like 3 minutes or so. So I think the first one might be 4.
As a teacher of technical writing, and with an emphasis on concision and getting to the point, Braden, I really appreciate those videos that can get to the point and avoid all the extraneous stuff.
I also put in little shortcuts so you could skip the 15-second intro too. Hopefully people got some use out of those.
That's good.
Yeah, I
use my
the
hour-long LegendKeeper video. Like,
well, I think it's very different purposes, right? Like, I think it's like deep dive versus like, here's how to do this one thing.
Yeah.
So you can go back to living your life.
Yeah. I turned off the story. I made a story section in one of my LegendKeeper apps too that I hid from my players, because I actually was taking it. That's where I'm putting like my ideas for upcoming adventure sessions, where and I'm trying to start some like some of the campaigns with like a little bit of like narrative flair, like the like for the Star Trek one, I'm going to have captain's log, and have somebody read out kind of like captain's log as they start the adventure, and then kind of go into it. And so I'm kind of putting that stuff in there. So I'm almost using it, as a place to kind of capture those. And the thing is, I didn't delete it. I'm like, okay, so there's my notes, and I can keep the log of what actually happened. But I also got it's sort of this interesting, hey, that's kind of what I originally thought, and here's how it ended up. So that's one of the ways I've started using it, and particularly since I'm using Anto, your in-depth session around the GM screen, which I think we were all inspired by.
Yeah.
So since I had my LegendKeeper app up with the GM screen, I could also quickly go to my session story and say, okay, so here are my notes. So I was able to just kind of like just stay within one space without having to, I didn't pull out, anything else really. It just made, I think, for a really smoother experience anyways, because I don't like going to books. But this allowed me to get to those pieces and build that. But so it's kind of using it as both world building and in-game activities is just. Braden, is that something you thought of when you thought of LegendKeeper to begin with?
People always surprise me, so
yeah. Like I'll sometimes put show notes. Like I may have like a lot of announcements I want to do right before we begin a stream, and so I'll just make a quick article and be like, stream notes. These are the things I got to remember to mention because I've got it on this screen. That's where I have all my stuff while I'm running the game. So it's right there. Just read through. It's like, cool, I'm done with that article. Got through my announcements. Moving on.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if there's someone out there using LegendKeeper for their mind palace. It's just like,
that will be me.
I memorize everything.
Like the day that LegendKeeper becomes like mobile based, anytime I have any thought, it'll be in LegendKeeper.
Yeah, I'm excited for them. But mobile is like, I'm always overwhelmed by like, give us mobile, yeah. So it's definitely on the to-do list.
No, it's one of those things that like it's a completely different ball game, because like the real estate folks is just not there. Right?
Yeah.
And so I completely understand the desire, but also why it's like, well, yeah, it's gonna be a minute before I'm gonna let you move pins around with your mobile phone, because they may just end up way off the map because your finger is giant compared to
more than once I've loaded up my Atlas on my desktop and thought, I'm missing some pins. Yeah. And then I realized they're half a world away because I've swiped on my mobile.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Oh
exactly. No. Okay, so I do want us to spend a few minutes talking about tags, because I think that like if I look at my own game, we are very like bucket centric here at High Shelf Gaming. And actually NPCs is a great example of where people will start to make categories of things and will start to make buckets of things when maybe some of those buckets could have been tags. And so I'd love for all of us to talk about tags for just a minute. Like I have people in my game and I have the player characters, right? And each player character, like if I just pick on somebody, they have their own, like, this is an old image for Vinton, but they have their own stuff and their own stats from the game and all this junk that I copied and pasted way long ago. But I don't need that for NPCs. So the player characters follow a template. The NPCs are, based on kind of where they're from. So I've got like the Midnight Runners family, and then I've got Night City and Sacramento. And I kind of organized everybody by which city or main thing that they're associated with. But they have a bunch of other assets associated with them as well. Like, what role do they play within the game? Are they fixers or solos? Are they net runners? Or, are they wanted by the police and all that kind of stuff? And sometimes, like, it's really good to know, like, who has a bounty on their head, right? So just like a quick tag for bounty. So I can do a quick find of like who in this area has a bounty on their head, or when you go and look them up in your agent on your phone, does a bounty show up next to their name, kind of thing. And the other thing I was thinking of is like, I do it all based on location, but I should probably, or could, change all of that to be like tag based. Like I could tag Ember as a Night City NPC instead of placing her in a Night City bucket. Because like Night City is a place and it has an article in places, right? And so I really don't need this as a bucket. I probably kind of just need this to be a tag. And this is kind of one of my things that I've been, as I go through and noodle all this stuff, I think, oh, I organized this when I was building it out. But realistically, a lot of these bits here could easily live in tags, filterable, searchable. And then, you know, the bucketing is this Night City, which is actually an article, could live somewhere else in the places section or something along those lines.
Yeah, this kind of touches on the idea that like tree hierarchies, like folder hierarchies, are easy to start, but hard to maintain long term. And tags are the opposite. They're hard to start, but easier to maintain long term. Because when you are building out this, you know, directory, this ontological tree of how everything is interrelated, you discover things about it as you get, you know, a month in, 2 months in, 6 months in, that you're like, oh, like having this nested here doesn't make any sense because it could also be nested over here and all that kind of stuff. One of the products that LegendKeeper takes a lot of inspiration from is called Notion. It's a knowledge management platform that's really, really nice. One of the things they let you do, which I think is a pretty elegant, I wouldn't say solution, but like elegant improvement to that, is you can actually nest the same thing in different places in the tree. Like, you know, an NPCs folder, right? But you also know that NPC is in Night City. You could just do that. You could drop a reference to that NPC underneath Night City, but like the true location of the NPC is like still in that folder. So that's definitely something I want to explore. But yeah, tags, I think for long-term knowledge management, tags are the way to go.
Yeah, I think I'm getting to that point in my game that my tree structure has gotten away from me.
Yeah.
And every time I look at it, it fills me with a level of dread that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, like even this like player area map, like as I look at that, I'm like, that makes no sense, David. Player area map that changes from game to game, okay? And player area moves, okay? So like,
for example, to kind of, I don't know if the tags in this project are set up properly. I should have made like an example or something, not properly, but for what I'm about to say,
I guarantee you they're not.
Like, let's say you've got all these articles for NPCs spread throughout your whole thing, right? What you could do is tag them as NPC and then go up to the filter by tags option, right click it, set it to display its results as a list. Say
I do it as a list already.
Yeah. And then once you search for NPC, that tree disappears and you just get a list of everyone with NPC, right? And so that gives you a way to kind of shave down the noise, right? When you're looking for something in particular. Tags aren't like, they work fairly well. They're a little like underutilized by LegendKeeper itself, in my opinion. Like, for example, one of the things I'm really excited to add is the ability to add, you know, right now we have that subpage index block, which will list all of a page's subpages in the body of the text.
Yeah.
I want to add a tag index block where you say, list all of the articles that have these following tags in the body of this text. So you could have an NPCs article that automatically updates itself, always linking to everything that is tagged NPC.
Oh my God. That would be
so amazing. That's the kind of stuff that we like really want to go crazy with. Once procedural text generation is back, we also want to use tags to like say, pick 3 random NPCs from all of my articles tagged NPC and have them show up in like this procedural text.
The whole cool. Yeah, I was using procedural text to make NPCs, right?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Especially in Cyberpunk, the the rule set for an NPC is actually prescriptive. It's just a bunch of D10 rolls. And so I was like, I don't know, let's just roll through the whole thing. And I'll say, make character. And it's like, boom, here's their whole life path. Here's their backgrounds. Here's how many friends they've got. Here's what they wear. Here's what they look like. And it's like, awesome. I know everything about this person now.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I really miss generators. I'm really excited to put them back in.
Yeah.
Because they added an element of chaos that I really liked.
Yeah.
So Brady, so question. All right, because it really resonated with me when you talked about, like, you know, when you start out, putting folders is easy, right? You know, you kind of, you know, it's a way for me to organize how I'm starting in this world. Okay, I'm in my cities, blah blah blah.
Yeah. And
I am beginning to shift to starting to use tags, probably for the same reason Anto is like, this is nuts. So this is beginning to get a little out of control. I need to make some adjustments. Is there sort of like any recommendations you would have in terms of like things you're seeing in terms of how, if you wanted to start out with tags and start using them to begin with, that sort of eases that transition over time, and that way I don't have to go back and tag a bunch of stuff that I've already done? You know, do you have is there sort of anything that you've seen in terms of how that might be managed?
Yeah, so I think the hardest thing about tags is you kind of have to develop your own system, right? You have to come up with the vocabulary, and like that's like a deceptively challenging thing to do. Like you're like, oh, I'll add this tag and this tag, and then you're like, oh wait, but like what about this tag? And for me personally, I like to keep a low number of folders, right? And then try to come up with a consistent tagging system that works for me so that I can use that filter by tags to really focus on things. One thing I see people do that's I forget, it's in a lot of applications. I call them like compound tags, but they'll do their tags like type : and then some type, right? And so they're giving like a little mini hierarchy for their tags too. So like NPC : merchant, NPC : traveler, whatever, right?
Right.
It's one of those things that's hard to give like prescriptive recommendations for, because like ultimately I think the single most important thing is a defined set of consistent tags. If anything, just be consistent, right? Like, it's more important to be consistent than meaningful even.
I haven't a huge amount of experience with the tags, because again, I'm in that kind of situation where I'm looking at my entire project and I'm like, oh God, I've got to go and redo all of this for tags. But someone in chat has just asked the exact question I was about to. Can you search for two separate tags in the filter by tags and have it pull up any article that has both?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can do both or either. Like if you click on the little filter option. But yeah, one of the examples I always do is like, you tag a bunch of monsters with monster, right? And then you tag them with like the biome they live in. And you're like, okay, I want to find all the swamp monsters. I want to find all of the mountain monsters. And, you can do stuff like that to kind of create little views. Now, I will say, I pretty firmly believe that it's LegendKeeper's job to help more with this stuff than it currently is. Like, I'm kind of imagining a world where you come up with this cool tag preset, right? And then you can save it. Maybe you can like automatically save it, like we're talking about, like as an article or as like a view in the sidebar that you can like refer back to really easily to give you kind of these dynamic organizational tools.
So I will say you have done us a favor in that if I click on filter by tags, you just list out all the tags that are currently in use. So I like can kind of quickly see, do I have a tag that already kind of fits what I'm going for here? As I've gone through and I'm starting to like look at a new article thinking, oh, I should make some new tags. I can go through and see real quick, oh yeah, I've already got a tag for text. So it's
weird that those aren't sorted. That's a bug. But yeah, also if you start typing, it should start narrowing them down too. Like if you start type A, it should narrow
One thing to note, just playing around with it at the moment, to search for two tags, you have to search for them both. Put one tag in, press enter, put the second tag in and press enter, right?
Right. Because tags could be a whole phrase. Like I've got Hecate Pharmaceuticals as a tag, so you gotta wing the whole thing. If you want it to be in there.
Yeah, and one of the things, and it's very high demand, and I definitely think it needs to be in, is like being able to color code tags, being able to edit them en masse. Right now, they're kind of like these loose values that you just like if you wanted to update, like if you wanted to change the word in a single tag, you'd have to filter out by all the articles that have those tags and then go through each one and change it, which is like not a great experience.
Bulk editing of things like that, I feel like is almost always a later thing in a product.
Yeah,
like because like
the important part is to just get stuff working, and then you can add the convenience on top of everything.
Right. Yeah. No,
yeah, I think that's a great, Patrick, that's a great point of I could see this tutorial series we're doing, this world building with LegendKeeper. I could just see one that does 60 seconds on here's a recommended tagging system, right? Like, oh, you're playing D&D, use monster, NPC, just something to get people started with, right? Or even built into LegendKeeper, you just say, here's a tag library. Click this if you want to just drop all these pre-made tags into your project for you to use. As content sharing gets implemented as well, that becomes more important, because what you don't want is an article tagged with monster, capital M, and an article tagged with monster, lowercase m, and just annoying stuff like that.
Right. And then monsters with an S. And it's like, oh, well, that's a completely different thing.
I misspelled monsters in one place. I mean, as I'm using it and building it, I'm definitely seeing how I would probably use tags with my own sort of ontology and taxonomy, and would be able to, I think, to apply it in future things that I'm creating and setting more from an outset, because I'll be more comfortable and okay, that's kind of how in some ways, LegendKeeper is helping me understand how I world build and organize information that allows me to probably next time set it up saying, okay, so this is, I'm gonna have these kinds of pieces put together so that I can do these things. So it's definitely a learning experience, but it's I think definitely it's and of course I know you collect all that data and stuff like that, so it probably would be a really great sort of hey, just think about this, some really simple tags that people could start popping in right away, as a get-go, so that when they finally kind of realize what they want to do, they have a head start on that kind of change. So
yeah, I have all these little LegendKeeper side projects in the back of my mind that I rarely have time to do, just because I have all, I'm working on all the major features. But another thing related to tags I would love to do is LegendKeeper looks at all of your articles with certain tags, and when you write an article similar to that, it's hey, do you want to tag it with this? Because it looks like this tag should be on this, right? A little light machine learning AI sort of support when it comes to recommending tags. Yeah,
that'd be nice. That'd be real nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was in. So I'm playing in this game, Blades in the Dark, and I was I noticed rivals. Rivals, interesting. As a player, it's what is the GM flagged as rivals? This guy, interesting. let's use tags to discover truths about the game I'm playing in. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, right? As a GM, make sure your tags are something you don't mind players discovering, right? Because I think
tags will be getting the hidden treatment too. There definitely needs to be a tag, being able to label a tag as secret, right? Don't show this tag to other people, or
yeah, it's interesting. There's so many layers of permissioning that I could see you just going blue in the face with all the different iterations of various permissioning things that people request, and at some point it's nope, here's what you get.
Well, it's so interesting because and I might have said this before, but most knowledge management platforms assume sharing by default, and you hide things optionally. But when it comes to RPGs, a lot of the time it's the opposite. You assume hidden by default, but with the ability to in very intricate detail reveal certain things, because that's what a DM does, right? The DM is the game engine that holds the world, and you want to surface these interesting things in just the right order to entice, your reader or your consumer or your player, right? And
which was
building
great.
a technological solution to encourage that has a lot of challenges.
Honestly, I was able to do that very easily. Because when I was wrapping up chapter 1, I knew going into chapter 2 of my game, we were going to move to Sacramento. And I was like, cool, I got all this stuff about Sacramento I need to build out. So I made it a walled city with a dystopian authoritarian government and all this stuff. And I did all that in the maps and the articles underneath that map in terms of the locations, all that kind of stuff. And that was all under a hidden folder.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then when the players got there, I was like, cool, this article they can now see. It shows them the map, right? And I could be that, like, I want to make a hidden corner and then make a bunch of content and everything in there is hidden. And then as I like, drop, drip each new thing back out into the public. So that was one thing that was actually very easy for me to do with this, to say, I'm in open space now. I'm making a bunch of open space documents. And now I'm in closed space for only me. I'm making a bunch of closed space documents. And that was really nice.
Yeah, for anyone watching who hasn't used LegendKeeper, another tool at your disposal is the ability to embed a secret block in a document. So if someone can, maybe the article is viewable, right, but you can drop a secret block and anything in there is stripped out before it's sent to like someone with read-only permission. One of the annoying things is if you grant edit rights to that article, they can now see all the secrets. That's just like a technological limitation. But just to entice everyone who might be familiar with LegendKeeper or might have run into that limitation before, I've actually been talking with the guy who created the core technology of the text editor. And we discussed a way to make editing possible with parts of the document still hidden, which I think the next iteration of secrets will be able to do that. And I'm really excited about that because that really adds some really cool potential there, where you can drop secrets essentially right under people's noses, even in articles that they can edit. And it'll all work seamlessly. And then you can choose when to reveal that and who to reveal it to and that sort of thing.
Dude,
That's super cool.
That would be intense. That would be really
because
nice.
I've been using that secret feature a lot too. So popping in is just like, even if it's just a thought, like, ooh, okay, I'm going to have this person, have this secret background, and just leave it there. And maybe I would go with it, maybe I don't. But it's there. But I don't reveal my hand if my brother or players like going through and looking at some background. So,
and I get a message like every week with someone like, I gave someone edit rights to this article and they read all of my secrets, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So I'll make this right.
So just so I know, how do I make something secret?
So you will type / in the main body of the document to access the quick menu.
Yep. No, I don't want to edit any of that stuff. Let me get in there.
What are you looking for?
Here we go. / in the document. Boom. Okay.
And then you will select secret. And so now anything you put in here, anyone who only has view only access, that can be completely stripped out by the server. The original iteration of secret, it actually sent it down, but just hid it. But obviously that has some, like, your tech savvy cheaters could still be able to see it. So it actually strips it out. And you can unwrap it, right? Like automatically, like reveal it. Secrets version 2, I want to be way more powerful, where you can say, like, it'll maybe in the top right corner, it'll show the avatars of all the people who can see it or all the people who can't, right? And you can go up and you can click and edit and like very visually control who can see it. And at the same time, have people edit this document.
Can I ask for another asset here? For the secret.
You may ask.
Yeah. For like, let's say I did this character, this like straight up character, looks kind of like an eye, but it's the bigger one. Whenever you do shift /. I think it's backslash. Which is what Discord does. If you want to do a spoiler, you right? Because
I think that's a great idea.
Because in my thing, like I use this to make my NPCs. I want the players to see what the NPC looks like, but I don't necessarily want them to know all the backstory stuff that I also had it procedurally generated. If I could, in the generator, say, all right, here's the stuff that whenever I generate a thing, I don't mind anybody seeing, but all this other junk, I want it to be secret.
Yeah. So is that like an inline secret, right?
Yeah, like while I'm typing,
that's cool.
I open,
like that.
Put a character in, keep typing, close the character, and now everything in there is in.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Now I'm just throwing stuff at you. No, thanks, David. I had other plans.
I love this stuff, so no worries.
Speaking of visuals, I hadn't noticed this until today that we can have full width articles now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which totally flew by me. I was
in the top right menu. You can this screen. It might not show it very well, but the you can toggle full width, and you can also toggle if the sidebar is shown. So if like you don't have any properties for an article, like
so much real estate.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I will say that being able to toggle that sidebar off has made working in my iPad Chrome browser version of this easier. So I know it's not the full mobile experience, but when I'm sitting there, at night, I'm like, and I can kind of like hide that's added enough real estate on that iPad to sort of make it.
And it's page by page as well, which I like.
Yeah,
that you toggle it per page.
Fair warning, that is like not a cosmetic change. That is changing the article. So like if someone else comes and looks at the article, they'll see it in full width and not see the properties either. You're changing the nature of the article rather than just the view.
That is cool.
I am interested in making a way to like just hide it like locally, like just for your client only.
Yep.
But I haven't found a way that's not like confusing to have both of those yet. But
I kind
when
of
I
like
do, I'll add it.
That you see what the admin has chosen, because it means you can kind of curate the content experience for the person that is viewing the article. If you've made a page intentionally to be full width, you can make sure that whoever is viewing that page gets the experience as you intended.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the like tenets of LegendKeeper that we kind of like stumbled into, that we didn't really consciously accept, but now that we do, it makes a lot of sense, which is it looks like what it looks like, period, right? Like there's no, which is why like we need view as so bad, because I think that like completes the circle of like if you're viewing this as another member of your project, it looks like that to them, period.
Yeah, right.
So I'm excited to do that.
And I don't mean to dwell too long on the full width thing, but because I've literally just discovered it and I've been excited for it for a while, I like that if I resize my browser window, it still dynamically changes it, and it doesn't fix me into having it push off the browser window when I'm at like half screen. So I can choose it to be full width, and then it will still compress the blank space.
Half screen editing is so important to me.
Yeah.
Because my copy and paste foo is like what I do. So
yeah, I need both screens.
Yeah, so good. Well, actually, we're getting a little long on time because we've gone over a little bit, which is awesome. I'm really loving all of the cool conversation and engagement that we've had, and really like diving deep into your brain, Braden, about various like features and that kind of thing. There was one other question that I don't know that we really got to from Valency, asking what other uses do folks have with LegendKeeper outside of RPGs? And I think in the chat there was mentioned that, Patrick, you are a novelist and you write some of your books using LegendKeeper, which is phenomenal. And we've kind of talked about that on some of past shows, but do we have any other examples that we know of, like other use cases people have for this? And I honestly don't know. So
I've heard of people using it for planning out live action roleplay, LARPing. I've always kind of wondered, I think LegendKeeper is very specifically branded to RPG folk, and like that's what I'm like kind of focusing on right now. But like I'm imagining a world where, what if, someone who runs a museum, right, wanted to like create a cool interactive map of their museum very easily, rather than having to hire a software company to like create a custom app. What if you could just sort of make that, right?
I mean, yeah, because they could have their museum and each pin could be a piece, and they're like, here's the full picture of that piece, right? And like the little blurb under the piece.
Another thing is like genealogy. Like if you're interested in kind of like mapping out your ancestry and you've got like an ancestry.com subscription or whatever, you could totally you know, upload a world map, right? And just start pinning, you know, where your family's from, right? That's another thing you could do.
Yeah. Dude, that is so cool. Oh, that is so neat. I love this. Yeah. And like I was thinking about like just because of the collaborative nature and like the visual and article mentioning, like this to me, if I go way back into like the aughts, there was that Google Wave project, right? Where people were like, hey, here's like a free form article. You can like throw pictures and all that kind of stuff. This is like, to me, kind of maybe a little bit of a step up from that. It's like I can make a project and we know that we as a team are going to be making lots of articles about thing, right? And we can even like have a project map and then pin articles all over that map. So like there's some creative ways to do that, but I think you're right that, you know, this is very heavily geared today for role players. And so your audience is like 90 something percent tabletop and LARPing players.
I think it might be a case of the RPG community took it first and came in en masse.
Yep.
So the majority of discussion around the use of the software devolves to RPGs. And the software doesn't care what you're doing. It makes no assumptions on what you're using it for. But because it's the RPG the community that's come in and taken it so hard, all the kind of conversation on, oh, how do we use this is kind of RPG focused. But the software itself has no bias towards that, I don't think.
Yeah, I definitely put together LegendKeeper to try to be like as unopinionated as possible. Obviously, it's, you know, if you look at our landing page, right, it markets towards RPG folk, but that's generally just because early on in a product lifecycle, it's just really good to really zero in on like who the customer you really want to like serve. And like, you know, I you know, play D&D, obviously, like it was, you know, what do I want as a DM, and, you know, really talking to people who also want those same things. But I could see like, you know, this is like years in the future, like, you know, white labeling LegendKeeper as Museum Keeper and, you know, all that, you know, variants to maybe bring in more people for whom the tool would be useful.
Sure.
This is my rookie mistake of the night. I need to grab my laptop adapter before my laptop dies.
Oh,
so you guys
okay,
take over the fort. I'll be right back.
In terms of other use of kind of things that you could do with this, one thing that just came to mind was kind of more like a project management kind of thing. If you were working with a team where you had to take a product or multiple products from point A to point B or C through different iterative stages, you could have an atlas that has, so for videos, scripted, filmed, edited, B-roll, all that kind of things, and you could move the article for the information from point to point.
Oh wow, yeah.
To indicate to your team or for your team to indicate to you where you are in a pipeline.
Yeah, so the map is the pipeline and the articles are the projects.
And then you could use the tags to mark things as complete or in progress, and then use the tag search feature to kind of figure out what has been done up to this point, where do we need to put our focus on.
That's neat. I like that. That's fun. I can really see that. Yeah, and good comments there on the chat about like documentation on map and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the big strengths here. So we're at about an hour and a half. I had like in my head canon this was going to be an hour, but we actually didn't really talk about it ahead of time. So are you all okay? I mean, we've gone a little over. Is that all? Is that okay? Okay.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
Just hanging out.
Yeah. So we got through my 2 items that I really wanted to get through, and a bunch of questions in the chat. Is there anything else that we need to cover tonight? that maybe has been in the back of our minds, like things that we've been wanting to maybe mention to the public in other various ways or anything like that, just around Legend Keeper before we do our closeouts? Kind of. All right. Cool.
I'm good.
Awesome. So let's go around the horn real quick. I will close out myself first, and then I'll pass it over to Anto and then Patrick. So I'm David Gillespie. This is High Shelf Gaming. We do actual plays of Cyberpunk, Blades in the Dark, Cthulhu Hack, and so many other games. Werewolf the Apocalypse. I think that's it right now. And we have more stuff coming. And so yeah, we have a YouTube. This will end up on YouTube probably tomorrow, kind of thing. And we also are a podcast. We are kind of an every other week podcast right now, talking about tabletop gaming, board games, gaming conventions. Back when we used to go to those, that's where we really got to start, was talking about conventions. And now we're talking about something else because there's no conventions other than virtual to talk about. Either way. That's High Shelf Gaming. We're always at this. We're gonna be playing Cyberpunk tomorrow, kind of thing, just always making games and always doing this kind of stuff. So hook up and join the Discord and all those things. Cause we're always running games out of there and looking for folks who want to play games with us. So that's our whole shtick, is just hanging out and playing games together in our own little corner of the internet. Anto, I'll turn it over to you, man.
Awesome. I'm Anto. I run Icarus Games. I make videos for Dungeon Masters and Worldbuilders on YouTube. And I also now have a Twitch as well. So I do live streams where I will build with my chat. I did one this evening. We fire up the map that you're looking at right now. I pick a spot and me and the chat just collaborate on putting some information in there and populating this world. And then you can find me everywhere on the internet. If you search for Icarus Games, you'll see my face. I'll find you.
Good. I like that. And then Patrick, talk to us about Two Brothers Gaming.
Yeah, so I'm Patrick Kanouse. I'm half of Two Brothers Gaming. My other half is my brother, and we have a Facebook group, and we've started streaming some games. So Cyberpunk, we're going to do Star Trek Adventures, Traveler, Twilight 2000. We play tons of games because we like to play them, and we're writing our own system, so it's really enjoyable. And then I do write some fiction under my name, so you can get those from Amazon or what have you. Modern day mystery series. I'm working on some science fiction, cyberpunk, space opera now. But yeah, Twitch, and I'm Drexel Pierce on Twitch and on YouTube. So
awesome. And Braden, our the man of the hour with the program that we're all now like deeply vested in. Talk to us how to get a hold of you, how to find you, and all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Braden, creator of LegendKeeper. LegendKeeper makes it easy to build worlds for your novels and RPGs. Check out LegendKeeper at legendkeeper.com.
I need this voice for all the things. All the things.
One of our new online presences is our Instagram, where we're posting little teasers and art and the occasional meme. So that's LegendKeeper app, all one word, on Instagram if you want to check that out. But our main portal is legendkeeper.com, where you can kind of see a whole rundown of what LegendKeeper is all about, and that links you to our Patreon, where you can actually sign up. But yeah, this is LegendKeeper's fun.
Awesome.
I like it.
Yeah. So folks, with all of you here, thanks a ton for tuning in, and with the great questions and discussion. The chat has been super positive tonight. You've all been really great to one another and to us. So thank you all for that. I have joined a little community of streamers called Jabronis. They're a bunch of really fun gamers, and I think there's one right now playing a video game, playing Dark Souls. So what I'd like to do is raid my friend Arsqueef over in the UK, playing Dark Souls late into the evening, his time. And so we are going to raid him. And what that means is I'm going to set up a little thing. Gotta get it right in the chat. There's going to be a little countdown timer. If you want to go, join. If you are like, hey, I'm done for my evening, all good. But if you could join me in running over to Arsqueef's channel while we go and watch him play Dark Souls for a minute, that would be awesome, just to give him some love. And so, yeah, this is going to be so much fun. You all have been great to us, and we will be doing this again next month. Maybe with some new voices, because we've been kind of talking about the idea of bringing in like some more world builders to, you know, spice this up and give us some different context beyond our collective imaginations.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool, everybody. Have a great
Thank you,
night.
everyone.
And as always, have fun and play well. Let's do this. Raid is done.
Bow.
Guys, that was good.
That was good fun.